Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And this morning on Cool Your Heels, Lillian's special guest is Howard Dvorkin, who is a CPA. He's written 2 books, Credit Hell, How to Dig Out of Debt, and Power Up, Taking Charge of Your Financial Destiny. So good morning, Howard. How are you doing this fine, rainy day?
Good morning. It's not so rainy down in sunny South Florida, but I appreciate having the opportunity to just talk to you and your listeners.
Well, I would appreciate it. As we all know, the stock market has crashed several times, and also it's gone back up a little bit, but people who are in debt or people who really don't understand how to take charge of their finances may look at it as a bad omen.
Well, you have to understand the old adage, what goes up must come down. And one of the things I do, one of the hats I wear is I'm also chairman of Debt.com. So we see a lot of people trying to learn about finances, and part of finances are investments, and part of investments certainly is the stock market. And at the end of the day, people see their 401ks, disappearing, parts of them, when the stock market goes up, only to be followed up by them increasing substantially a couple months later. The reality is the stock market is a volatile investment vehicle, and sometimes it goes up and sometimes it goes down. For the last decade, the stock market has increased to a point that we've never seen. We are in the longest bull market that this country has ever seen. It has to come to an end. I was having lunch with the chairman, CEO of Goldman Sachs last week. His expectation, which I'm happy to share with you guys, is probably within 3 years we're going to hit a recession. So it's a natural progression. Also, history tells us after a presidential election, typically a recession does hit, and certainly there's a pullback in the market. That is just historically true. So I don't think that people should be concerned or aware. To be very candid with you, at Debt.com, we were getting tremendous volume of questions regarding should I sell my 401ks and go to cash? And the answer is stay the course. If you're not going to look at retiring anytime soon, stay the course. Make sure you have quality mutual funds that you're invested into. Nobody should be owning single stocks in their IRA, although I might get some backlash on that. But I will tell you that it's probably better to have a trained team running your investments for retirement. If you're close to retirement, 5 years out, 6 years out, maybe even more, you should start to turn your investments less from stocks and equity, more to bonds, because you have to take a little more conservative view of those assets, because that may be your only source of income. So you have to definitely protect what you have.
Now, if you're retired already and you have a financial advisor, and several of the boomers were smart enough to get one when they were still earning money, and they see the stock market tumble down 2,000 or 3,000 points, what do you tell them?
Again, I focus mostly on debt. That being said, the stock market
debt is, or I'll put it this way, we're settling mostly on debt. So if seniors have typically more bills, medically speaking, yes, even though Medicare and your secondary insurance does pick up a lot of it, sometimes there are excruciating circumstances where you need to pull the money out to cover additional expenses.
No question. And, as I was trying to say, I focus a lot on debt, but part of debt is making sure you have money to pay your bills. And that is definitely coming from investments outside of working, and certainly with seniors. And frankly, the last 20 years, I've never seen seniors retiring and stopping work while they're holding debt, and I'm seeing that more and more every day. Seniors are retiring when they don't typically have the ability to stop working because they have so much debt. So it's a very challenging thing. And you're absolutely right, Lillian, with regards to your seniors. The seniors do have extra expenses because of the health care.
Okay, so if the boomers have a lot of debt, do they look to their kids to help them undebt themselves? Or do they get themselves more into debt because these kids are coming to them and saying, we want to take a vacation, we need braces for Peggy Sue, we would like to send Junior to horse camp this summer? Would a lot of that debt being taken on by the seniors because of their kids, their adult kids?
The answer is yes. The fact of the matter is, because I live in South Florida, that's where Debt.com is headquartered. We see a tremendous amount of seniors down here that want to do what's right for their kids. They want to give the opportunities to their children to live in a nice house, to their grandchildren to be well educated. We see that all the time. I mean, I see, parents funding business ventures for their children and thus racking up their credit cards and putting them in a terrible situation, and the business is failing and everybody's in a bad situation. At the end of the day, my best advice is watch out for yourself. You obviously want to do the right thing for your kids. There's no question. But you got to do what's right for you and make sure that you have a secured future, because you don't want to end up being a burden to your own children, which could be the case. And the fact of the matter is a parent in debt should not be getting into debt further to further the lifestyle of their children, because at the end of the day, their children are adults. They need to work and they need to live a decent, provide for their own families. At the end of the day, seniors should not be responsible. Now, I do understand if you have to pay rent or food or car payment, something of necessity, you're helping people out. But don't sit there and allow your children or your grandchildren to invade your credit. What I see a lot of the times is that a child of a senior, the senior ends up co-signing for a car and then gets stuck with the car, and then it also impedes their credit. So basically, you could be generous to a point. Don't be a fool. That's my advice.
So when you want to take charge of your financial destiny, long-term planning, that's how I look at it. It's long-term planning. When's the best time for you to start planning how your money is going to be spent? And I guess the most important question is how much debt is it safe to be in before you're in over your head?
Well, there's a couple questions there. The first thing is with regards to planning. You start as soon as you start working. And I know that's easy for me to say, but that's what I did. And I maxed out as much as I could my 401ks or my IRAs as much as I possibly could and never touched them. It's not a piggy bank that you can touch. So you try to max that out. With regards to your spending, I think you try to pay off your bigger bills, maybe your car, and pay off your home if you have the ability to do that. You don't want to go into retirement when you stop work with a pile of debt, because you may be earning 2%, 3% if you're lucky in the bank or bond investments, while the credit card companies are charging you 20%. That's ludicrous. You cannot stop work if you have debt. It's just simple. I mean, it's sad. Before, parents or older folks, seniors, were more inclined never to file bankruptcy. I'm seeing that more and more because it's becoming more common and easier for the society to accept bankruptcy. But at the end of the day, you don't go into retirement with a pile of debt. It doesn't work. That's not going to end well. With regards to your question and what the question you had, I mean, we really need to take a step back and figure out what your future looks like on paper. Sit down with a trained financial planner, or there's plenty of opportunities online what to look that can help you, and models that you can plug numbers into that'll help you project what you got going on. But I mean, my best advice is don't stop working until your debt is under control and certainly, hopefully, gone.
Absolutely. And another piece of advice, I'm with American Express. With American Express, you got to either pay the whole amount or you just don't charge it. And that's pretty much what you need to do. I mean, I had this talk with my kid when he was around 10 or 11. He says, well, how do you stay out of debt? And I said, well, the best way is never get a credit card. Because people use it as a way of bailing themselves out. When I was a young adult, I had friends who were $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in debt.
Well, at the end of the day, credit cards are used in 2 or 3 different ways in today's society. One way is they're used to supplement someone's lifestyle, meaning they can't afford their lifestyle that they have, so they just put it on their credit cards and just shove it on their credit cards and let it roll. That's a bad thing. I mean, credit cards, you shouldn't be spending money you don't have. So unless you're 100% sure that when that bill comes in the next month that you can pay off, don't use your credit cards. Go cash. I know it's an old-fashioned thing, but if you go cash, you're going to spend less. If you use your credit card, you're going to spend more. And that is a proven scientific fact that has popped its head, and certainly it shows that the study has shown time and time again, by the way, that people that use their credit card tend to spend more. That's just the way it is. So try to go cash, because at the end of the day, psychologically, listen, you got that green stuff going through your fingers. You worked hard for that. You don't want to let that stuff go. It's called cash. You remember that? So at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we use cash as much as possible and don't charge up the credit cards. And certainly for seniors, they shouldn't be using credit cards if they know that they can't pay it off. And don't think that next month is going to be any better than this month.
No, I agree with you. Do you think the use of the cell phones, because I know that a lot of the companies are now pushing down in the commercials where you just hold up your cell phone and you have it read whatever it is on your cell phone. Does that go debit out of your account, credit out of your account, or does that go on a credit card as well?
I think it's either, but I do believe that there is some pain factor there. I still don't think psychologically it's as strong as letting that cash go through your fingers. I think for people at your age or my age, I wonder if we're going to use those cell phones as a wallet. I think it is possible we may see that more and more in commonplace in the next 5 to 10 years. It's certainly picking up steam, but that's for our children to worry about for the most part. But you will spend more if using a mechanism or a credit card.
So how does one wean themselves off of it?
Cold turkey.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I mean, I've seen crazy things. I've been doing this, at Debt.com, and prior to that, I founded a company called Consolidated Credit, which is the largest credit counseling agency in the world. I've seen all sorts of things. And one of the things I've seen, people would freeze their credit cards in a block of ice, and by the time that credit card thawed out, or that block of ice thawed out and you got to it, maybe the desire wasn't there to use that credit card. I've seen everything. Hand it to a friend, put it in a safety deposit box across town, so it took you time to get there, or a day or so. At the end of the day, you got to have the strength not to buy. And certainly if you're heading towards retirement, you certainly shouldn't be buying and spending money.
So when's a good time now to start trying to get yourself out of debt, completely clear, have your mortgage pay off, because that's a real biggie, not take out a second mortgage, for people who are contemplating retirement. Now, the retirement age is going to be put up to 72 now.
Mm-hmm.
So that buys people some time.
The time to do this is right now. Doesn't matter what age you are, you shouldn't be living in debt. Why would you want to do that? And I can basically say there's not one person listening that wants to be in debt. Nobody wants to be in debt. It's a noose around your neck. It's a weight around your ankle. At the end of the day, you should try to make every effort to pay down as much debt as you can, as fast as you can, and don't get stuck on the minimum payments. Those are meant to keep you in debt, not get you out of debt. I mean, pay as much as you can. If they say you could pay $25, pay $75. Triple your minimum payments. Work on your highest interest rate account and push those payments towards the highest interest rate that you're being charged, regardless of the balance.
Yeah.
People always like the psychological win of paying off the lowest balance. That's great, but it doesn't. If they're charging you 10 and somebody's charging you 20% interest, the best bang would be to pay off the one that's charging you 20% interest. And also, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask your credit card companies if they can lower your rates. Just simply say your competitive situation, you saw this ad, and you want to turn around and get a better rate. And sometimes they'll do it, sometimes they won't. But at the end of the day, a lot of the times they will reduce your interest rates. So that's a good thing. Don't be afraid to ask for a better deal. Also, go to Debt.com. They have a learning section, educational section that is tremendous. A lot of the articles I've written over the years, including some passages from my books, are on there or located on there. And frankly, if you read through all this stuff, you're going to have some tired eyes, but you will have a very good handle on that. Also, Consolidated Credit has an excellent learning. ConsolidatedCredit.com has an excellent area for learning, and certainly deals with a lot of seniors on this topic.
Which is important. Now, I wanted to ask you also, does it make sense to put a lot of the times you're being urged to put all your debt onto one card, consolidate it in one card, and then just pay off that one card? Does that make sense for seniors to do that?
It makes sense if they're charging you less money. You got to be very careful, because what happens is there's always tricks. Nobody does anything for being a nice guy. A lot of these credit card companies say, oh, no interest for 3 months, no interest for 6 months. That's a great deal. But what's my interest after that expiration?
Yeah.
What do I get charged? If I turn around, I got a card charging me 15%, but I transfer the balance, and once that balance goes up, I'm paying 25%. What did I just save? Not a lot. So be careful about that. and make sure, these interest-free programs, doesn't mean you shouldn't stop making payments. Keep making payments even though it's interest-free. Make the payments. And the other thing is going into a store and you get all these deals, no payments for a year or 2 years.
Yeah, I was
going
to ask you about that because it seems like a lot of people get caught by that 2 years interest-free. But I'm always wondering when the other shoe is going to drop.
Well, the other shoe is this. If you don't make your payment on that particular date when you have to or before, they're going to back charge you all the interest, and I've seen them back charge somebody from day one at 27%. So I saw one guy turn around, and he was 1 day late. He was trying to be smart, and guess what? The mail did not cooperate with him.
Yeah.
So don't try to play the game. Meaning they received that payment 1 day late and they hit him for about $2,000 in interest. So it is not a good game to even get involved in. And it's frankly, we get those, my wife and I were sitting there buying a mattress this last month, and everybody was offering interest-free, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want the headache. But are there good deals? Yes. Does it make sense if you don't have the money? Yes. But you should make payments all along anyway, because if you don't pay off that interest-free in full on the time it's at the time it's due, if you don't pay it off, guess what? You get back charged all that interest. So you have to make sure if you're going to take one of those deals that you're going to pay off in full that purchase, or else you're going to get smacked. In private stores, private financing through Synchrony, which is a big bank out there that does this stuff, they're not making friends. They charge as much as they possibly can charge the consumers.
The same thing with cars, people. I mean, I stunned Honda when I walked in with cash to pay for my secondhand car. They said, you sure you don't want to charge us? We have a great financial plan, blah, 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 blah. And I just handed them the check, and I said, suffer up. This is cash. Take it.
Well, you're smart enough to do that, but a lot of people don't understand that the dealerships get paid to put people into their loans.
They
make
kickback.
A commission. Of course they do. And all those stupid warranties that are worthless and everything else, they all get torched. I mean, basically the consumers really get a bad deal when that happens. So try to not buy any add-ons if you can, and in fact, if you cannot finance a car, that's the best plan. But if you have to finance it, you may do better going to your bank. You may overall get a better rate.
Yes. Do your homework. I mean, I did my homework before I do anything.
Yeah, but let's be real.
Yeah.
A house, a car are probably the largest. They're probably the largest expenditures anybody's going to make.
Oh, absolutely. But if you have too much debt, you won't get the loans for buying the house.
You won't get the loans, or you'll get a bad rate on the loans, which will cost you more. And think about this. If you pay even a 1% larger on a 30-year mortgage, that's tens of thousands of dollars. So you got to make sure if you go for a mortgage that you got your credit's in good shape and that your debt is under control, because they look for any reason to charge you more.
And they also look at how much of a credit limit your card provides. So don't celebrate when your credit card company sends you a letter and says, we're so impressed by you paying us off, we've raised your credit limit to $25,000, $30,000, because it can work against you.
Right. It's true. And during the recession, the beginning of the recession, I know that I never finance anything, and I don't carry debt. When the bill comes in, I pay for it, period. That being said, it's very interesting that when the recession hit, I got all these letters that said, we're reducing your balance, your available limit to X. And it was very interesting. And the reason why they did that is because the federal government was making them reduce their exposure. And I was a good candidate because I never maxed out any of my cards ever. So it's don't think that you're being rewarded by getting a letter saying that they'll expand your credit limit. And the simple reason is credit card companies aren't your friends. Lenders aren't your friends. Understand they're on this planet to make money, and they're going to make money off of you.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
one other thing before we wrap this up. When you go into debt, are there different types of debt companies that you really need to be aware of because they're not really out there to help you but to make money off of you?
I mean, lenders are lenders. There's different levels of lenders. Some focus on people with good credit, I'm assuming you and me. Some people focus on the mid-tier credit, which are people that might have had maybe heavier in debt and don't have the and don't have the assets to pay off their bills, so they're carrying some credit card. And then some focus, and it's a very profitable area, they focus on subprime lenders they focus on giving people loans that have diminished credit but they're going to charge because your risk is higher because the consumer has they may have a history of not paying their bills, so they're going to pay a very much higher rate than maybe you and I would pay. So there are different types of loans. There's credit cards, there's personal loans, there's a lot of action happening with these lines of credit. You know, I will tell you that every day I come home, I get a new offer for doing a personal line of credit or a corporate line of credit, and at the end of the day, you know, they're not trying to be my friend. They're trying to make money off me, and that I realize.
Absolutely. And if you get something through the email like I have, and they're offering you unsecured money, trash it immediately. Because unsecured, you're asking for trouble.
But if people do get in trouble, I mean, there is help out there.
Exactly.
Certainly, if you're contemplating retirement, you should try to take care of your debt now rather than when retirement is, you know, right outside your front door. I would tell people that they should go to debt.com. If they have credit card balances, we can figure out what they need and put them together with some reputable, good companies that focus on getting people out of debt. And frankly, we have been doing this myself. I've been in this space for 27 years. So I know the space, and frankly, people need not go into retirement. And truthfully, you asked a question earlier on, what's the right level of debt? And the answer is no debt is the right level of debt. Am I a realist? Do I understand that people need to use credit cards in the year 2020? Yes, I understand that. But they also need to be responsible and take care of their debts and make sure that if they're going to pull out those credit cards, that those credit cards are going to be paid in full when the bills come in. Because if not, it's a trap. It's going to cost you a lot of money.
One final question. I know that there are a lot of cards, especially credit cards now, issued by the banks, where you get anywhere from 1% to 4 to 5% back every time you make a purchase. Is that something that a senior should be aware of to use, or is it more of a trap for them to get into debt?
I mean, the reality is, I think it would be ludicrous for you and I to think that seniors or anybody's going to go without a credit card. It's just not. You need a credit card to live in this country. I mean, whether it's booking airplane flights, whether it's booking car rentals, unique hotels, whatever. The fact of the matter is there are some good programs. I like the reward programs. I mean, different programs are good for different people. You know, you could get points where you could buy a bunch of stuff. You could get gift cards. You could get cash back. I mean, I personally like the cash back part simply because it's you're getting an immediate cash reward, and they build up over time. You got to watch when the points start to expire. I could tell you I had a credit card, and I never really watched any of the usage of the points. I never tapped in, but all of a sudden I got a letter from my credit card company saying, use these points or these are going to expire. And guess what? I got like a $9,000 check back, which is a tremendous amount of money to receive. So it does add up, and it's a tremendous opportunity. If you're going to use your credit cards, you might as well get something, a little bonus for it.
Terrific. That's what I thought. Is there anything else you would like to add, Howard, before we wrap it up?
Listen, at the end of the day, people are going to use credit cards. People are going to use debt. If they're going to retire, don't retire with debt. Just do everything you possibly can to make sure you liquidate that debt over time. Go through, make sure if you are using credit cards that you're using a credit card with low interest rates. If you're carrying debt, try to get rewards if you can, but at the end of the day, try not to use the credit cards and try to pay cash. And if you need help, go to debt.com. It's a great website. There's a lot of help out there, and I would suggest highly that people go there and learn about situations that they may be faced with and how to navigate through somewhat of a complicated system. The credit system in this country is complicated, and there's a lot of nuances that most of us don't understand.
And always read the fine print.
You know, you are 1,000% correct. However, that fine print may be 20 pages of that you need a microscope to read.
That's true, but you ought to be at least...
The fact of the matter is the general terms you should understand.
Yep.
What they're charging you in interest, what's my grace period, how soon from the time I receive the statement do I have to make a payment so you don't get caught.
And a penalty.
And a penalty.
And make sure if you can't find it, find out. Ask.
Yes.
How much is this going to cost me if ABC 1, 2, 3 happens?
Yes.
You got to ask these things. They expect you to ask them, but they're not going to bring it up.
Oh, they're never going to. They're not going to kill a sale.
No.
For you or anybody, their job is to push as many credit cards as you can.
Absolutely. And that's something else. You don't need 10 credit cards or even 25 credit cards. Pick one or two with a good rewards program, and you should be just fine.
Yep.
I have one from my bank, and I use it, well, for everything. And guess what? I know how to say no to myself. So.
But you're not typical, Lillian. I can tell
I know I'm not. I've been atypical all my life.
You're not typical. Most of us like to buy shiny new things and put it on the credit card because that's painless.
Well, I have to admit that when I was growing up, both my parents were the products of World War II and the Great Depression.
Well,
so
that's the thing.
When my mother got the credit card, my father spent most of his working life paying it off. And I learned quite early on, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. I think the
It's true.
only bad debt I ever had hanging over my head was my school loan that I took out to get through college. And it took me about 25 years to pay it off, but I paid it off, and the government was astounded.
By the way, you and I grew up in similar backgrounds. Um, that Depression era mentality was
Yes.
definitely drilled into my head
Yes.
from my grandparents and truthfully from my parents also, who got the same drilling from their parents. However, this new generation doesn't have those lessons, and those lessons are extremely valuable.
Absolutely. I would love to create a course in which the kids are put into a reality type position where they've just gotten through a major war and then deal with with the market and the economics, because that's all that is marketing and economics of what's going on for that period of time. I had my mother's cookbook that had the blue section for when everything was rationed.
Right.
And I pretty much raised my kid that way, so he's not a big spender either. But it has to be taught in extreme conditions, I think, for the lesson really to get through. Well, you can't have any sugar. You can't have any sugar until next month, when the ration ticket will be accepted for 2 cups of sugar, and that's it.
I agree. At the end of the day, we got to watch our money, because as much as health is important, money is important as well. Maybe not so much, but at the end of the day, a lot of good things can come from money and a lot of bad things.
Absolutely. Howard, I hate to close down the interview, but we have run out of time. However, you will be asked back. Ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, you can hear this interview all over again on amfm247.com/Lillian-Caldwell. You can also hear it over at https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Right-hand side of the page menu, scroll down, Cool Your Heels, click, and you will see it there. You can also see it on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, Podchaser, just to mention a few. And if you do not have a computer, senior folks in their 80s and 90s, and you want to hear this, just pick up the phone. We have a Sizzle page. Phone numbers are provided. Just dial the phone number and you'll hear the audio immediately. And before you go away and stray, Edmund Burke had this to say in 1796, ambition can creep as well as soar. So thank you very much for listening, and until next time, enjoy life.